Yesterday we talked about offense. Today we'll talk about the Blackshirts against the Black Jerseys.
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's line this puppy up. I'm DP, Locked On Huskers. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Your Huskers every day. Thank you for joining. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your comments and your suggestions. Greatly appreciated. Before we get into this defensive battle and the things the numbers that are in play, Mark Onweiler, would you please let Husker Nation know about LinkedIn?
Thank you, DP. This episode of Locked On Huskers is brought to you by LinkedIn. Now, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's super easy. Just add your job and your job description to LinkedIn Jobs. Add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. They have simple tools like screening questions, making it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and then hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. DP, back to you.
Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate it. And again, I appreciate you for hanging out with me for the course of this episode. I wanted to talk defense and jump on the defensive side of the ball because there are certain things that impact defense and how you play call defensively, how you scheme defensively. And some of that is the depth chart. The depth chart matters. Different players on the field have a different reaction to when it comes to what offensive coordinators feel comfortable playing. Different players on the field affect how quarterbacks play call and how they go through their progressions because depending on what's called and what route is being run, not everybody runs the route at the same level of efficiency and effectiveness. Not everybody runs every play. Some off tackle versus some outside game. Some people handle the zone read better than others. And then the offensive line, who blocks. Look, secondary linemen often have a specialty. They have a thing that they do better naturally and more consistently than not. And it may be that your new right guard may actually be better in the run game than he is in the pass game. And so you have to play call effectively and consider it. And if you're Purdue defensively looking at Nebraska's offense, you've got to make some decisions on what you think Nebraska is going to do based on the people who you expect to be on the field the most. Now, there is some advantage to not knowing, and there's some advantage to that in game to be able to turn over the right guard position from Nori to Latowski and knowing the work that's been done and put in so far. But if you're scheming against that, you need to know. That means you now need to know, what does Latowski – I've now got to go deeper in tape to watch play call situation circumstance with Latowski at right guard. The same has to be said for Justin Evans-Jenkins at left guard. What does he do well normally based on the tape that he's put on so far this season? And to understand that some of his tape is in the big tight end position. Some of his tape is at center. What does he look like in full at left guard? And specifically, what did it look like against Northwestern and how much of that carries over to the Purdue and what they do? Teddy Prohaska is a different left tackle than Turner Corcoran. He excels at a different level. Of course, he's bigger, longer. Not sure who's healthier, who was healthier. Prohaska's healthier now, and now he gets the position, and then what that means behind it. Because if Prohaska can't go or goes through issue, who's the backup? And then Purdue now has to look at the tape and find out, well, wait a minute, who's this Gatola kid that's going to be the backup at tackle? What about Sam Sledge? I mean, he's a freshman from Omaha. What do we know? What happens if, like against Northwestern, Purdue against Northwestern, that Ben Scott, God forbid, goes down? Justin Evans-Jenkins slides to center, and then that puts Sam Sledge at guard, and then you've got a different conversation altogether. All of that in play, all of the verbiage that goes on, all the audibles are going to be called. Again, with Ben Scott now communicating with two different guards and a different tackle. There will be three different starters on the offensive line this week. That's a difference maker. You got a different player playing the spot. Jaden Doss is now at slot. What does he do compared to Billy Kim? What does Malachi Coleman do versus Marcus Washington versus Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda? Those are all things in play. What does this allow you to do? Can you move Alex Bullock inside? He has the most starts of all the wide receivers. What does that mean for the defensive coordinator for Purdue? And listen, Purdue's numbers defensively speak to some things that it's not ranked as one of the better defenses in the Big Ten Conference. And here's some of the numbers. That in rush defense, they give up 153 yards a game. That's the average. That would put them 11th. That puts them in the bottom third of the Big Ten Conference. Nebraska bring a run-first offense. That is a thing that you would circle and kind of highlight. And then you have to figure out, what does that mean for Purdue? Do they add some additional bodies to the box? Do they change the different gap responsibilities? What do? But when you're the 80th best run defense and you're facing the 20th best running offense, that seems to be the matchup that gives Nebraska the most cause for comfort and Purdue the most cause for discomfort. If you're giving up 153 yards a game in the run game to a rushing offense that's first in the Big Ten and averages 195 yards a game, my goodness gracious, if you're game planning and you're Marcus Satterfield, you've got to feel like this is a situation that we can take advantage of, except you have three new offensive linemen. Do those three work in the best level of chemistry and effectiveness in the run game? I'm not sure. We won't know until we see. In the passing game, Purdue's defense is 14th in the Big Ten Conference. 14th. That in the passing game, they're giving up 242 yards a game. That's 91st in the country, 14th in the Big Ten. And for Nebraska's oft struggling, sometimes consistent passing offense, that is 125th in the country, 12th in the Big Ten Conference, at 134 yards a game. Does it mean that there's additional responsibility, less responsibility? Does that free up some additional defenders to be put in the box for Purdue to help settle the run game and to settle some of those run differences? Or does that mean that, well, listen, they have to have a fear of these new receivers because the younger receivers seem to be the field stretchers. Those seem to be the deep ball guys. And if you're taking people out of the box, you cannot be in two places at one time. Wherever additional pressure comes from, there you throw to that additional space. You can't be in two places. And Purdue will have to make a judgment on what they want to concede. What is it that they're willing to give up? And who are they willing to give it up to? So the numbers tell you a thing. We will jump and flip the thing and talk about Purdue's offense versus Nebraska's defense and how they match up when we come back to Locked On Huskers. Hey, gang, DP here, Locked On Huskers. Thank you for making us part of your day. Your Huskers every day. Greatly appreciated. If you're from the visitors in Purdue checking in to have some intel and some insight, welcome, because that's how Husker Nation gets down. Mark Onweiler, if you would, please, let them know about FanDuel.
Thank you, DP. This episode of Locked On Huskers is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $500 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. DP, back to you.
Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate it. As we roll into this thing, we were talking about Purdue's defense versus Nebraska offense, and then all of the things that in Nebraska's change of personnel, how it would impact preparation for Purdue, how they would approach this. What are they going to go through? What are the things that they're looking for? And through the advantage that Nebraska being the best running rush offense in the Big Ten Conference, and Purdue being one of the better defenders against the run of the Big Ten Conference, that is the thing that we can circle and say, good. Nebraska has some wins here. They have some advantage. And then it allows Marcus Satterfield to get in his bag of play action, getting Harburg in motion, some RPO action where, literally you're putting duress on points of the defense and allowing them to make decisions and have some success. But for Purdue offensively against Nebraska's defense, a couple of things for you to look for so you understand where this thing matches up. That Purdue's passing game is 4th in the Big Ten Conference. 63rd, it's in the top half of the country, but 4th in the Big Ten Conference at 232 yards a game. For Nebraska, their pass defense is in the bottom third of the Big Ten Conference when it comes to yards per game. Purdue averaging 232 yards a game, Nebraska averaging giving up 237 yards a game. That's kind of the lane. Matt Rule described Purdue's passing game as dynamic and that it's been successful in moving the ball, high efficiency, 60% in completion numbers. Looking at the numbers as well, and we'll get into the third down stuff, but in the passing game, that's where they stand. In the rushing offense, they're in the bottom half, but they average 139 yards a game rushing, and that's not a bad thing. And again, we all remember what Devin Mockabee did a year ago, the 30 touches and 170 plus yards, moving the chains, getting first downs, and then extending defensive minutes on the field. Whether it was in the run game, in the downhill running game, or whether it was in the passing game, whatever it was, Mockabee created some problems, and they have a two-headed monster. So that rush offense, while in the bottom half of the Big Ten in numbers, Nebraska fans have some understanding of what it's capable of because it played a big part in Purdue winning last year. Total offense, Purdue is number 6, generating 370 yards a game, somewhere in that space. Again, top half of the nation. Their scoring offense is 7th. They put 23 points a game on the scoreboard. Now, Husker fans, if you say that Purdue's going to come in here by average and score 23 points, but that Nebraska's defense is better. Now, Nebraska is 2nd in the Big Ten in rush defense. They were 1st and now 2nd at 77 yards a game. So if they meet somewhere in the middle and Nebraska takes away some things and allows some things, but Nebraska's 12th in the passing defensive category, 81st in the country at 237 yards a game. Nebraska's scoring defense puts them at 19 points a game, while Purdue's average 23 points. If we said 20 points a game is what Purdue will expect, can Nebraska generate enough offense to do that? Can they cover the 20 points? Look, the numbers are there for a reason. Nebraska's scoring defense is 19 points a game versus the 30 that Purdue puts up. What Purdue will have to do, and the same thing is in play because the emergence of James Williams and seeing what Cam and Jamari Butler are doing on defense, and then the growth and exposure of Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker, to also see the depth that Nebraska is putting in play, to pay witness to what Coach White and this Husker defense is taking away on a weekly basis, making choices, and the depth and rotation of development that's been required, the coaching that's been required, the flexibility of the 3-3-5 defense. We spent a lot of time in the offseason talking, working, worrying, breaking down the 3-3-5 defense and what it allows. Well, what it's done so far is change Nebraska's culture and personality to turn this into a defense-first team, the number 2 defense in the Big Ten Conference. When it comes to the run game, 4th national. There are only 3 defenses in the country that holds teams to fewer yards per game rushing than Nebraska. There are only 25 teams that average fewer points than Nebraska. Nebraska sits at 26th. To give you the point of reference, that Purdue sits at 98th, 98, 91, 91, and 80 when it comes to their defense. Nebraska at 4, 21, 26, and 81st. Then you get into the bells and whistles of third down and getting teams off the field. Here's what it says to you. Purdue is 7th in the Big Ten in their third down percentage. They are converting third down at a 41% basis. Listen, talking to Husker Hall of Famer Jay Foreman yesterday, that number Saturday needs to be under 40, substantially under 40. Nebraska's third down offense, for point of reference, this is why we give the numbers. Nebraska is 10th in the Big Ten in third down conversion at 37%. Nebraska's number on Saturday against this Purdue defense is going to have to be higher. It's going to have to be higher. They're going to have to be more productive. And then in the red zone, look, Purdue is 13th in the Big Ten. Nebraska's 14th in the Big Ten at converting in the red zone. Defensively, they're right about the same level, right at about 10th and 12th in the Big Ten in red zone defense. The numbers don't lie. They tell a story. Now, whether you're paying attention to them, that's entirely up to you. Before the break, when we come back, I want to talk about the third team. Defense is not just complete in offensive defense. It's in the special teams. Depth roster plays into this thing. We'll talk about the special teams when we come back to that. Hey, gang, DB here, and thank you for being a part of what Locked On Huskers is and does. Your Huskers every day. We thank you for you folks who subscribe, those folks of you who put comments down in the comment section. Greatly appreciate it as well. As we talk about, you talked about defense and how those numbers match up. A couple of things in play here. That offense and defense, depending on your ability to stay on the field if you're an offense and get off the field on defense. Penalties play a big part of it, and the Boilermakers are 11th in penalties and penalty yards. 11th in penalties, 12th in penalty yards against. So that means big penalties, substantial penalties rather than your offsides and that sort of thing. But the penalty yards that they're helping teams to at 55 yards a game. Just think about it that way. That's an additional 55 yards a game. We can't throw confetti in the air if you're Nebraska because they're giving up 50 yards a game to penalties. And for an offense that has had its issue in struggling, Nebraska cannot err itself into giving up 50 yards a game. Those plus 50 yards matter. Why? Because alongside of that, turnovers. Purdue has done a pretty good job. The profit margins, the turnover margins matter. Purdue is 8th in turnovers gained, turnovers lost, and the margin. Nebraska is 11th and 13th. We'll bang it deadly into the table. Nebraska has to control its penalties and its turnovers to have success Saturday against Purdue. Not making it up. The numbers are right there in front of you. That's literally what it stands for. That Purdue's kicking game struggles. That is an advantage to Nebraska. In the punt game, Purdue averages a net after return of 35.5 yards per. Nebraska net is averaging 38.8. Purdue is better in the return game. 11 yards of return in punt returns. Their punt return defense, neither team is exceptional. They're both in the bottom third when it comes to punt return defense. Nebraska is in the bottom third when it comes to punt return yards. When it comes to kickoff and kickoff returns, here's the number. In returns, Purdue is second. They're averaging 30 yards of return. So if you want to swing a field, you want to get in better field position, listen, this is a day for Nebraska to kick the ball out of the end zone. 30 yards, and they give up 23 yards of return. For Nebraska, you average 23 yards of return, 24 yards of return, and you're giving up 17 yards of return. That's third in the Big Ten Conference, and it matters. And here's how it comes into play. When you start losing wide receivers, these are skill position guys that also play on special. So Nebraska's punt return kicker and its kickoff return guy, both are out. So you're going to have new players in that position, new stresses, new concerns, new insecurities. When you lose defensive backs, it shows up on special teams. Both teams are fighting injuries. Nebraska's are known to Nebraska fans. Purdue's are known to theirs. But the team that has the most success in the kicking game and in the return game gives itself an opportunity to have the best day Saturday. Those are the defensive numbers. Make of them what you will. Listen, the run game will play out. The run game will play out, and it will determine how this thing goes. Nebraska play a clean game, and they have an opportunity to improve to 5-3. If they don't, hello 500. That's it for me today here on Locked On Huskers. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers the first watch and listen each and every single day. Greatly appreciate you. We'll close with the 3 words we love so much. Go Big